نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم رسوله النبي الأمين المكين الحنين الكريم الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله تعالى في شان حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Most respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We are discussing Kitab al-Zuhd of Imam al-Tirmidhi, and we are discussing the first hadith from Kitab al-Zuhd, which is the Holy Prophet ﷺ spoke about two favors that we squander, and those are the two favors of Allah are firstly as-sihha wal-faragh, health and free time. Now, we've been discussing health, physical health, we've completed alhamdulillah, and we commenced with the discussion on mental, emotional, as well as physical, as well as social health. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ in one dua spoke about what we would call 8 deadly cardinal vices. And those were the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. He said, Ya Allah, I seek refuge with you from hum, anxiety, and hazan, and grief, or what we would call depression today. And then he said, from being heavily in debt and from being overpowered by other men. And the Prophet of Allah ﷺ categorized them, meaning there's a connection between these two groupings. So we have 4 groupings, and they are all underpinned by one essential negative quality in us. And what is the negative quality? It's underpinned by an overarching negative quality which is called fear. Why fear? Because when it comes to hum and hazan, anxiety and stress and sorrow and depression, right, the underlying fear is the fear in terms of our feelings, right? We become fearful in terms of our feelings and how to deal with them and how to overcome negative thoughts and whatever it is there, and we fear to be able to even change some of those things at times. Sometimes people become, so to speak, comfortable in their anxiety-ridden conditions and whatever. Actually, they feed off it. So there's a fear in terms of feelings. Then there is a fear in terms of fear in feelings. Then you have ajz and kasal, laziness and incapacity. That's fear in doing. But this is fear in terms of doing. So you have fear in terms of feeling, you have fear in terms of doing, and then you have miserliness and cowardice. And that is fear in giving. Because if we can't give of our wealth, and if we can't give of ourselves, anfusahum wa amwalahum, Allah keeps on speaking about people in the path of Allah in terms of themselves, their lives, as well as their wealth. So there's a fear of giving. So you have fear of feeling, number one, the first category. The second one is fear of doing, and the third one is the fear of giving. And the last one, which is a social component in terms of some of the incapacities that we have and the shortcomings that we have in being overcome by debt and overwhelmed by debt, and from the anger and the wrath and being overpowered by men, is a fear of failing. These are the things that underpin these qualities. And now Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, and before him Abu Ali Miskawayh in his Tahzib al-Akhlaq, spoke about the fact that these 4 categories and the 8 qualities and mental conditions described by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, right? Fundamentally being emotional, in being physical condition, negative physical condition, as well as being a negative mental condition, miserliness and cowardice, and a negative social condition, is because a human being and the human personality is in one way or the other suffering and is deficient in what we would call the 4 cardinal virtues. Imam al-Ghazali and Miskawayh before him, they've taken this wisdom, which is the lost property of the believer, the Prophet ﷺ stated. They've taken this wisdom from Greek philosophy and so on there, and they've amended it in terms of the Islamic ethos and the outlook. And they said the 4 cardinal virtues are wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Not necessarily in that order, but wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. These are the essential qualities that underpin the human personality. And if one of those qualities is out of balance, then you find these qualities manifesting. Now, let's start off with something more practical. This is more for philosophical discussion, but let's start something with more practical for us in terms of how we experience our days, how we experience our lives, and how we deal with difficulties, problems, calamities, and challenges that may face us. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, stress, when it comes to stress, stress is what is the response to daily pressures. So when we are confronted with something that is going to stress us out, or a circumstances, some event or some work or something there, then we become stressed. That's a daily response to daily pressures, stress. But if it becomes long and drawn out, and if you find yourself in a condition wherein you are faced with some type of challenge, some type of difficulty, some type of calamity, some type of long-term problem, then that stress then graduates negatively, obviously, to a state of anxiety. For some people, it becomes a mental disorder, but for others, whilst they are presented with a difficult situation, a difficult problem, some challenge in their life or some calamity in their life, then it becomes a period of anxiety for them, wherein they become scared and apprehensive of what lies ahead. And they constantly worry, what's going to happen tomorrow? Currently, the COVID crisis is something that has everybody anxious. Because this is a long-term thing. It's now almost more than a month that we are in lockdown. So people are becoming anxious. It's no more stress. They are becoming anxious about their financial future. They're becoming anxious about their education. They're becoming anxious about their earnings. They're becoming anxious about their own health. They're becoming anxious about food and so many other issues. So this is where anxiety comes in. So how did the Holy Prophet ﷺ give us guidelines with regards to dealing with stress and distress, and what we would call anxiety, right? This was the response of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of daily pressures and daily stresses, or for that matter something longer term like what we have right now in terms of the COVID crisis and whatever it is. So when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be afflicted by something which caused him stress or distress in the moment, the Holy Prophet ﷺ would engage in, amongst other actions, the Holy Prophet ﷺ would say this. He would say, La ilaha illallahul azimul halim. La ilaha illallahu rabbul arshil azim. La ilaha illallahu rabbus samawati wa rabbul ardi wa rabbul arshil kareem. This is in Bukhari and Muslim, inshallah ta'ala. And what does this mean? None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the incomparably great, the compassionate. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Rabb of the mighty and the majestic throne. And none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, the Rabb of the heavens, the Lord of the heavens, the Lord of the earth, and the Rabb and the Lord of the honorable throne. The Holy Prophet ﷺ would say this when he was afflicted by some type of stress during the course of the day, or some type of distress which may be a little bit long term. Then he would constantly recite this. Another thing, and the narration states, he says, عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله تعالى عنه كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا كربه أمر قال. The Holy Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, when a matter would distress him and would cause him anxiety, which is a bit of a longer term issue, the Holy Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to say, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, O living, O eternal, برحمتك أستغيث. Ya Allah, in your mercy do I seek relief. I beseech your mercy. I seek out your mercy. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith. So he was stressed out, and when he found himself in a state of anxiety, then he would call on with one of the greatest names of Allah, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And then he would say, bi rahmatika astaghith. I seek relief in your mercy. Right? And then the Holy Prophet ﷺ used to make a few other du'as as well with regards to all of this thing. And sometimes when he would find himself in difficulty, he would also recite Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. In the same hadith he says, the Prophet of Allah would also encourage people that in times of stress, that you recite constantly Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram, O possessor of majesty and honor, Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. If however he became even more anxious, right, and found himself in a very difficult situation, then the narration of the hadith says that the Holy Prophet ﷺ would engage in salah. Following the Quranic directive, he would practice sabr, which is from within oneself, and then he would engage in salah. making the ibadah of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of formal prayer. Ista'inu bis sabri was salah. So the Holy Prophet ﷺ, if he found himself in difficulty, then he would perform salah. But what would be ista'inu bis sabr? If you were to explain how to seek help from patience, what would be the solution to that? How do you become patient? Well, the first thing, and this is what the scholars have recommended, is the first thing is that it's not the situation which is challenging, but more important than the challenging situation or problem or difficulty or calamity, more important than that is the manner in which we respond to that challenge, that calamity, that difficulty. And one of the greatest living examples and greatest commentaries on how to look at a situation very, very positively and hold on to the positive side in terms of a positive outlook regarding the challenge and the problem or the calamity ahead can be found through the example of Qadi Shurayh, the Yemeni jurist who accepted Islam in the era of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, but never got to see him like Uwais al-Qarni, who was also from Yemen. And he was appointed by Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab as a judge in his era, and he continued to be a judge in the Islamic court right till the era of Sayyidina Ali al-Murtada as well as Amir Muawiyah. Now, in fact, Hazrat Ali al-Murtada, who was the Chief Justice, right, stood before Qadi Shurayh, with Qadi Shurayh being the judge and Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala who being the, I think it would be the appellant or respondent, forgive me, I don't know my legal terms here right now, but the claimant, right? So this is how great Qadi Shurayh is. Now see how Qadi Shurayh rahimahullah gave us guidance how to deal with daily stresses as well as a distress or anxiety which may be a prolonged process, like some of the things that we are undergoing right now. Look at his outlook in terms of dealing with the challenge and dealing with the difficulty and the problem. He says that whenever he is faced with a challenge or a calamity or a difficulty, Qadi Shurayh, he says, then I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 4 times. He said, Inni la usabu bil musiba fa ahmadullah alayha 4 marrat. He said, verily, if I am afflicted by a calamity, a difficulty, a problem, a challenge, then I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 4 times. And what does he praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for? He said, Ahmadu idh lam yakun a'zamu minha. He said, I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it was not worse than what it is. So he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the fact that the calamity, difficulty or challenge is not worse than what it is right now. Number 1. Thereafter he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, وَأَحْمَدُهُ إِذْ رَزَقَنِيَ الصَّبْرَ. He said, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has provided me with patience and granted me patience to bear it. So he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the patience that Allah has granted him. Then he stated the third thing that I do is that he says وَأَحْمَدُ إِذَا وَفَّقَنِي لِلْإِسْتِرْجَاعَ لِمَا أَرْجُو مِنَ الثَّوَابِ. He said, then I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He guides me to remember my hope for reward for patiently bearing the calamity. So he becomes hopeful of the reward that he will receive inshallah ta'ala through being patient in this calamity. And then finally the 4th one, he says, and وَأَحْمَدُهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى إِذْ لَمْ يَجْعَلْهَا فِي دِينِ. He said, then I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this was merely a worldly difficulty, worldly calamity, worldly problem, worldly challenge, but it wasn't a calamity or a difficulty or a challenge or a problem in my deen. And I thank Allah for that it was not a challenge and a test and a problem for my deen. So this is how we deal with stress, distress and anxiety through the guidelines of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba kiram ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. We'll continue tomorrow inshallah.